You're listening to the Paul Harrell Program, brought to you by Conduit Media Group.
Hey, folks, welcome. It's hour number 2. Thank you so much for being with us. My name is Paul, the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. That's what you have found. And we will entertain your phone calls or text messages if you want to sound off about anything. 870-275-9799. We've been going through our impression of the session, going through different legislators. They've been so gracious to come on. One of those is standing right next to me, State Representative Jack Ladyman. He's from District 59. Welcome back, Jack.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you for inviting me. It's always great to come on and talk with you and discuss what's going on in Little Rock. Let the people back home know what we're doing.
Absolutely. So feel free to take as long as you want or as short as you want, but what was your, in general, impression of the session 2017?
Well, Paul, that was my second session down in Little Rock. It was tough. It was a really tough session. We discussed, passed, and failed some very important issues, I thought. We talked about taxes a lot. We were conservatives that went down there. There were a lot of tax bills in front of us, things that we really didn't want to vote for. But we have issues. We have to address the issues. So I think it was a good session. We passed a lot of good bills. Some good bills failed, and I can talk to you about a few of those maybe later. But an example that sticks in my mind is Josh Miller's bill to put a cap on Medicaid expansion. He had a bill. I was on the Health Committee, and we debated that quite a bit in the Health Committee, and it passed out of the committee, passed on the floor. I talked in favor of that on the floor and in the committee. I thought it was a good move, even though we don't know what Washington's going to do. That is something that we can do in Arkansas to limit where this thing's going, and I believe
right now it's up.
The finances are going to get out of control. Another thing, I'm on the Budget Committee this session, and the budget that we passed had an increase of $16 million. Which, we want that to be negative, but we haven't got there yet. But that's a relatively small increase. But it's $60 million over last year. $14 million of that was Medicaid.
Wow.
So if you take out that Medicaid, which we're starting to pay, we have to start to pay for
10%.
that now.
I saw a figure
to begin with.
5%. I heard that 5% this fiscal year is $100 million or something like that. Is that true?
I don't remember what the total is.
I heard it was over 109.
But we did not have to increase the budget the full amount of that. Okay, it was $14 million. The line item was $14 million. So that was the biggest portion of the increase. So we are doing some good things. But we got a long ways to go.
Yeah. So that's interesting. You said it was tough. Okay, I've been doing this with a lot of people taking their notes. So tough, but you accomplished some good things.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And let me tell you.
Did you?
Go ahead.
Expectations going in. What were your expectations, and were those expectations met? With 76 Republicans in the House, were your expectations met?
No, we didn't do what I thought we could do. There were a lot of things that I thought we could pass that did not pass. The biggest thing that bothered me, again, was the number of bills that proposed tax increases. Didn't expect that. I thought that we would at least cap the Medicaid expansion. There were just a lot of things that I thought we could accomplish that we really, when it got right down to the voting, the Republican conservative majority didn't pass a few bills.
Yeah.
And that was upsetting a little bit to me.
Yeah. So you mentioned the tax increases. So we can go over them. I mean, and the first thing that y'all did though, got positive headlines by cutting the tax $50 million for those making $21,000 or less. That got positive headlines. Of course, it's not a full $50 million. It's only $25 million and doesn't start till 2018.
Right.
And then the other $25 million, which is probably a good thing considering we're kind of not meeting projections right now with time running out. So that looks good, but then it's a quest for revenue. They may not call it tax increases. It may be tires, it may be internet, it may be digital downloads, but it was or the gas tax, and that sort of thing. So, a lot of people were thinking, why try to go after so much more money from the folks?
We could spend this whole segment talking about taxes because there were so many bills, and the thing about it was, if we had 6 tax increases in front of us, 6 that I can remember, there might have been 7. I didn't vote for a single one of them, and one of them was very tough. The one that was tough for me was the veterans, cutting the veterans, the income tax on the veterans' retirement, because I promoted that bill. I was a co-sponsor of that bill.
And did you vote against it?
I voted against it.
Wow.
Wow.
No, that's. Oh.
I did not vote against it. I voted present.
Okay.
And
well, you guys were put in a tough spot right off the bat. You were told to raise these taxes because there were tax increases in the bill, but a tax cut for military retirees.
And let me tell you why I voted present. And I got more negative emails on that vote than I've ever gotten since I've been down there, and some of them were well founded. But the reason I voted present, and I was one of the few that did, I could not vote against the veterans tax cut because I thought that was a good thing. And I believe that will pay for itself. I believe that should have been a clean bill. And Bob Ballinger and I had a clean bill. Bob Ballinger put the bill, I was co-sponsor, that just cut the taxes. It did not have the 3 tax increases that the bill that passed had in it. We increased taxes on Coke or soft drinks. We increased taxes on unemployment. And the third
digital
one,
downloads.
Digital downloads.
Which still don't really know how that's going to work. I mean,
I don't know either. Well, we'll talk about that a little bit more later, but I don't know how that's going to work either. But it was 3 tax increases. So I could not vote against that because I wanted that for the veterans. But if they stay in the state and they start businesses and they pay taxes, it's going to pay for that. It was 14 or 16 million was the cost to the state. We will have that much income from those veterans if they stay here or come back here. My nephew's in the Navy up in Maine. He's going to retire when he's 40-something. He could come back here, get a job, have a good-paying job. He's going to pay income tax, sales tax, property taxes. That's just one person. We have a lot of people in Little Rock in the military.
Yeah.
At the air base.
Jacksonville, yeah.
Yes, and they leave the state. They can go across the river to Tennessee and save 16% on their taxes. Wow. So, it would pay for itself, I think. So I would have voted for a clean bill, the one that Ballinger had that I co-sponsored. But I didn't vote for this one because of the tax increase. I could not vote for 3 tax increases.
And I want to say thank you, Jack, for that, because I know it was a tough situation, but and I talked to some of your colleagues who have a great conservative voting record, and they said they voted for it because they had promised the veterans back home already that they would before they started adding the tax increases to it. They kept amending it and making it bigger.
And this is why we need to come back and talk to the people here about this. And let them know why I voted the way that I did. And I believe here's what I believe. And the game down there, as you know, Paul, you've been down there. It's not a plus or minus. There's a lot of give and take. So if that bill had failed, then we could have brought the clean bill forward. But it didn't fail. Okay. The same thing with the internet tax. Now we'll talk about that. Okay, that was 3 of the tax. We had the internet tax, we had the gas tax, and we had the tax that, what was it, on the food stamps. The food stamp bill, the SNAP bill, which I voted against. But on the gasoline tax wasn't going to pass. They just did not have the votes to get that passed.
No, they were pretty upset. That ballot title was deceptive, too. It was going to go to the people. And we weren't even going to know that it was going to trigger a tax increase.
The sad thing about this is that the highway department needs that money badly. And there's good and bad to both sides of this argument or discussion, because it is true that we have more efficient cars. So, most people are paying less for their gasoline because the cars are more efficient. That is true.
Thanks a lot, Obama. That's just a joke. Okay.
They have a valid point there. So the tax revenue from that gasoline taxes is declining because of the efficiency of the cars. And the roads are still getting driven on the same amount, right? So we still need the same amount of money. So we do need more money. That is a valid point. It's a question of where do we get that, right? But most people do not want a tax increase on gasoline. And I know that because that is a need. That's not an optional thing.
Yeah, it's a necessity.
If you're a single mother in Bono with 2 or 3 kids and you're driving to Jonesboro to work at the hospital or something, you got to buy gas. It's not an option. And that 6.5% increase, maybe you can't afford that.
Yeah, which is 10 or 11 cents a gallon. And we got to remember right now, gas is at record lows. But
who knows?
If it was at $3.40 the way it used to be, and of course look at the Middle East situation right now. I mean, who knows what's going to happen?
So Johnny Rye, Representative Rye, and I worked on an alternate bill that didn't really get much traction, didn't get anywhere. But the internet tax, you can debate whether that's a new tax or not, because it is something that we should be paying. If you buy stuff at the brick and mortar store, you should be paying that tax. And the brick and mortar stores are at a disadvantage. When I was the mayor, I pushed for this hard because the businesses in my city were at a disadvantage. They really were. And that needs to be a level playing field.
Let me ask you this, though. Do you think that people who are buying on the internet now, if this tax goes through, will all of a sudden now not shop on the internet and go to brick and mortar stores?
I don't know. I doubt that. Well, there might be a certain percentage.
Some. I was talking to a guy who sells copiers the other day, and I think he would benefit. Because a 9% on a very expensive copy machine is, you might, but for a lot of these people that are not using brick and mortars, brick and mortar stores. So, but
here's the thing, Paul. If I'm down, say I want to buy, I don't know, a $200 dishwasher or something, and I'm downtown, and I say, well, I can go buy that on the internet and save 9% on $200, $300, $400. There's going to be some give and take there where you may buy that locally.
Right, and like I said, it is an argument to be had. The issue with 140 though, before we really even get there, is that the Supreme. Do we want to pass a bill that is already just to be a court case, just to be a test case to go to the Supreme Court?
Well, again, that's a debatable issue.
Right, exactly.
Because you're absolutely right. It's not constitutional right now.
But what you were saying with Representative Johnny Rye, you guys are saying, okay, look, if we're going to vote for this thing, it's going to bring in $150 million, or I think it's going to be more than that.
Right.
Let's put the money somewhere instead of just let's actually use it. And a lot of people, it wouldn't have been for me, but a lot of people might have said, okay, I can swallow that. I want better roads. Let's take that money and put it towards roads. But you guys ran into a brick wall on that. They're like, they don't want that money. They want to control it for some other purpose. They don't want it to go to roads.
Well, yeah, and the thing about Representative Ryan and what we talked about when we were debating this, and a few others were involved in this too, but was if we're going to take that money, even though it's not a tax increase, it's money coming out of people's pocket.
Yes, true.
To
revenue, more revenue.
Paying that, it's a tax increase. So if we're going to take money from people, let's use it for something that benefits the people. So use their money wisely. That's not something you normally hear in government, but we want to do that. We want to use the money wisely and give it back to the people in a way that will benefit them. If they're going to have to pay, then they need a benefit to come back to them. What's more beneficial than fixing the roads? Everybody uses the roads, right? So like you say, a lot of people could swallow that new tax or collecting that tax if it went into roads. So our whole deal was designate this for roads because they needed $210 million for roads.
Yeah.
Right? 140 million or 150 million of that could come from this collecting this tax. Now, of course, these are not exact numbers, and they're going to vary. Like you say, it's probably going to be a lot more money than that in the future,
especially over time.
Right.
Well, so talk about this resistance that you got because the Democrats meant the same thing in revenue and tax. They had an amendment where they wanted the $150 million to go towards rural fire departments, and they were strangely aligned with some of you guys in the fact that we just don't want to give the governor or anybody else kind of a blank check. Here's more money to spend however you want.
Right.
We want it to be, and then there's others that wanted actual, if you raise $150 million, you will put in the law that you will decrease our taxes by $150 million. Right. Some people wanted that, but that just met resistance.
Well, the main resistance that it met, the conservatives, the very conservatives in the House, which I said close to one, and his comment was, I don't like carve-outs. I don't like designating the money. I like putting it in the general fund, and then we vote on the budget, and we allocate it through the budget process. So I don't like carve-outs. The highway department's a little bit different because they're outside the legislature. The only money they get is the designated gasoline tax. So this would be designating that money
You'd
for.
You'd think they'd get the sales tax on used cars and all that other stuff.
We had that bill as well, and I think I think I mentioned that the other night at the Tea Party meeting. But that should go to highways because the cars and the parts and all that's used on the highways. But people don't like carve-outs, so that's one. The other thing was that many of the Democrats and the more liberal thinkers, they wanted to designate part of it for DHS and schools and other things. So when you start saying, well, okay, let's carve this out for this one purpose, then everybody says, well, if you can do that for highways, I want 5% for this and 10% for this.
Yeah.
So you get into that discussion. So it's real hard to stay on target here. But the thing about it is, what we wanted to do was not have to increase the gasoline tax by 6.5% because that is a need. People have to have gasoline to get to work, and we should not tax that.
Yeah.
We ought to tax something that's optional, like the internet, to where you have a choice, and you don't have to buy that baseball cap or whatever it is you're buying on the internet.
Yeah.
You have the option not to do that, not to pay that extra tax.
Yeah. Well. Certainly is an interesting. Can you hang on through the break?
Sure.
Because I feel like you have something else you want to discuss.
Sure.
So we're going to take a quick break and be back in just a moment with more with State Representative Jack Ladyman. Don't go anywhere, folks.
iTex is your first choice for cost-effective IT services. Protecting your business means protecting your data. Are you tired of unpredictable and expensive spikes in IT spending? Using iTex will prevent downtime and loss of employee productivity and do it all with an affordable, predictable budget. iTex is the premier managed service provider for small and medium businesses. They help their clients put IT to work to earn your business more money, and you should contact them today for a free consultation. 870-336-9778. That's 870-336-9778 or itexusa.com.
This is State Representative Dan Sullivan with the Liberty Moment. During this legislative session, we need to remember that Arkansas is one of the most highly regulated states in the nation. Former U.S. Representative Allen West said it best. We believe in the humility and integrity, the spirit of one people bound together under God. We understand that the Constitution was written to control and regulate the government, not to control and regulate the people.
Paid for by Sullivan for Arkansas. Whether you're looking for a small desktop copier and printer, thinking about adding color to your documents, or considering a document management solution, Total Document Solutions is there to help. In business for decades, Total Document Solutions is an independently owned company that specializes in the ability to provide a high level of service in Northwest Arkansas, the Arkansas River Valley, Southwest Missouri, and Southeast Kansas as an exclusive Platinum Authorized Sales Agent for the Xerox Corporation. At Total Document Solutions, they offer customers technology services to improve business results. Their dedicated sales team has the unmatched industry knowledge, professionalism, and expertise needed to address the unique challenges of your business. Total Document Solutions is independent, local, and well-connected to serve your office products and document needs. Call them today at 479-575-0770. That's 479-575-0770 for your Total Document Solutions.
The Paul Harrell Program.
ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the program. We're here now, part 2 of Jack Ladyman, State Representative Jack Ladyman's impression of the session. I want to talk about 2 things before we go. We don't have a lot of time. Task force on taxes and then medical marijuana. Task force on taxes, what are your thoughts?
Well, the task force, I'm very interested in that. I've thought about asking to be on that, but it would be a lot of time consuming, and taxes is not a real sexy subject. But the task force, what I think they need to do is look at the states that are doing well. And we don't do that enough in government. We do that in business. But, if we look at Texas or Tennessee, who are our neighbors, because Texas is, they're number one. I met the head of their BLR, legislative research, down in Chicago last year when I went to the national convention, and talked to him for about an hour and a half. And I hated it, but I told him, I said, I have to say this, Texas is actually a lot better than Arkansas, and I was at the 1969 Arkansas-Texas game, and I hate to say that, but you guys are doing a heck of a job, and they are doing a good job, and we ought to look at that, and we ought to see what they're doing. We ought to see what Tennessee's doing, and then look at our system and see how we compare. But there are things that we can't really compare with them, like our roads. We talked about that. We've got more miles per capita than most states. Okay,
so somebody said more miles under state control than California. It seems like I heard that.
That's probably true, Paul.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
I've spent a lot of time on a lot of highways in California. That's probably true, because of the makeup of our state and the way we're set up.
Well, the counties gave a lot of these roads over to the state a long time ago through legislation. It wasn't the counties, it was state representatives doing that, lifting the burden from the counties, and now it's just a lot of overhead, a lot of maintenance.
But our state has a lot of resources. We have a lot of activities. We've got a lot of farming, so we need a lot of roads.
Yeah.
We're doing a lot of transporting in this state, but that's a negative that we have. I mean, it's a good thing, but it's something we got to pay for.
Medical marijuana, you guys passed a ton of bills on that, I feel like, for that subject.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, just what are your thoughts on the future or the status quo of things with medical marijuana?
Well, let me give you a little insight into the House. We passed 16 bills, I believe it was, on marijuana. The very first one that we voted on, which was to change something that was in the amendment that was voted by the people. So it took 2/3, I believe it was 2/3 or 3/4, to pass that. There were a lot of people just flat would not vote for anything because they thought it was unconstitutional for us to have marijuana in the state.
Yeah.
And I understand their viewpoint on that. Yeah. But if the people speak, we got to do it.
Yeah.
And that's my opinion.
Well, and they certainly voted. State Representative Jack Ladyman, I appreciate you coming by. Your impression of the session 2017. We appreciate it, sir.
Well, thanks for having me, Paul.
All righty, folks. We're up against a hard break. Back in just a moment.